Society loves categories. It loves boxes with clean edges, labels that don't smudge, and people who stay predictable. But every now and then, a person walks in who doesn't bend, doesn't beg, and doesn't broadcast their identity like a public announcement, and suddenly the system glitches. These people are not rebels, not outlaws, not loners by accident. They are intentional, silent, strategic, and because they don't play the expected social choreography, society points at them like a technical error. People fear what they cannot label, resent what they cannot control, and destroy what they cannot understand. Enter the so-called Sigma male, misunderstood, misread, misdiagnosed, not because he is wrong, but because he doesn't fit a template built for conformity. This passage dives into why society keeps misdiagnosing Sigma men as problems not with flattery or fantasy, but with cold social behavior patterns, psychological friction, and the uncomfortable truths people avoid. The term Sigma male gets tossed around online, often watered down into some edgy archetype or pseudo-mystical persona. But strip away the memes and misconceptions, and what you're left with is a behavioral pattern. A man who is autonomous by design, socially selective, mentally self-regulated, and almost immune to traditional social conditioning. This type of person does not reject society, he simply refuses to negotiate his identity to be accepted by it. And that refusal has consequences. Because when someone doesn't need validation, doesn't crumble under social pressure, and doesn't depend on the collective for identity, the collective turns defensive. And defensive societies create myths. This video exposes the 10 brutal reasons society keeps misdiagnosing Sigma males as problems, not because they are flawed, but because they disrupt a system built on predictability and dependency. 1. Society confuses non-compliance with danger. Because people panic when someone doesn't ask for permission to exist. Sigma males don't seek permission not for thinking differently, not for choosing differently, not for existing differently. In a world engineered around obedience, this looks like rebellion. But Sigma behavior is not rebellion. Rebellion reacts to a system. Sigma behavior bypasses it. A Sigma doesn't ask whether he is allowed to pursue a path, he simply evaluates whether the path aligns with who he is. Because of this, society interprets his quiet autonomy as a threat. In a world conditioned to equate compliance with safety, individual autonomy becomes suspicious. The average person is trained from childhood to follow, mimic, obey, and blend. So when someone acts without needing the group's permission, it activates a primal insecurity. Nothing terrifies a controlling system more than someone who doesn't require its approval. The Sigma male isn't a danger, he's simply unowned. 2. Society mistakes silence for arrogance. Because it can't accept a man who doesn't beg to be seen. In a world addicted to performance and attention, silence becomes an act of rebellion. Because Sigma males speak when necessary and observe before they participate, society sees them as arrogant or superior. But Sigma silence is neither. It is calculation, strategy, and discipline. People who rely on noise to feel important feel threatened by a man who doesn't need to announce himself. His quiet presence exposes how desperately others cling to visibility. Some people don't hate your silence, they hate what your silence reveals about their noise. A Sigma isn't aloof. He is simply uninterested in the social theater. 3. Society pathologizes solitude. Because a man who enjoys his own company is economically inconvenient. Sigma males don't avoid people, they avoid dependency. They can work alone, think alone, rest alone, and recharge alone. In a culture that profits from loneliness and distraction, a man who doesn't need constant stimulation is treated as abnormal. Solitude becomes suspicious because it doesn't generate revenue. A self-contained man is immune to consumerism, peer pressure, and social engineering. People project loneliness onto him because they can't imagine solitude without suffering. A man who needs nothing cannot be controlled by anything. Sigma solitude is not withdrawal, it is sovereignty. 4. Society misinterprets emotional self-control as emotional absence because it expects men to be either tough or broken. The world loves emotional extremes, but Sigma males operate with emotional precision, not suppression, not explosion. They feel deeply but privately, which confuses a society accustomed to emotional oversharing. Because they don't weaponize their emotions or broadcast them for validation, people assume they have none. They confuse measured expression with coldness and restraint with emptiness. In reality, the Sigma's emotional world is layered and rich. He simply refuses to perform it for others. People call you emotionless when your discipline threatens their dysfunction. Sigma males feel intensely. They simply don't perform it. 5. Society mislabels integrity as stubbornness because it can't handle someone whose principles don't bend. Most people alter their beliefs depending on who they're with or what they want to avoid. Sigma males don't. Their values are internal, not social. Their boundaries are real, not decorative. Their standards aren't negotiable. This is threatening because it exposes how situational most people's morality is. A Sigma who refuses to compromise is labeled difficult by people who compromise themselves for acceptance. His unwavering structure confronts their fluidity, and instead of admitting inconsistency, they attack his integrity. When you stand firm, those who kneel for approval will call you rigid. His principles aren't stubborn, they're structural. 6. Society misreads independence as isolation because it doesn't understand connection without dependency. Sigma males form connections, but they form them consciously. They don't cling, chase, or demand emotional oxygen from other people. This confuses a society built on codependency. Many people believe closeness requires constant access, emotional merging, or shared insecurity. But the Sigma treats connection as choice, not survival. Because he doesn't rely on others to define him, people interpret this as distance or coldness. In truth, he loves with intention, not desperation. Connection is a choice, not a crutch unless you make it one. A Sigma isn't detached, he is self-contained. 7. Society interprets analytical thinking as cynicism because honest observation threatens comfortable illusions. Sigma males question narratives, analyze motives, and evaluate people based on patterns, not promises. Society hates this because it thrives on comforting illusions and collective denial. When a Sigma sees beneath the surface and speaks the truth, he becomes negative, cynical, or too serious. Not because he's wrong, but because he's accurate. His clarity exposes other people's denial. His perception disrupts the stories they tell themselves. Truth sounds like criticism to those built on lies. The Sigma isn't cynical, he's perceptive. 8. Society misjudges adaptability as lack of commitment because it expects men to pick an identity and die with it. Sigma males can shift strategies without losing themselves. They can adapt without absorbing the environment. They don't cling to titles, roles, or external identities. People mistake this flexibility for inconsistency because rigid minds assume change equals instability. In truth, the Sigma's adaptability is the result of inner clarity. He can evolve because he knows who he is beneath the evolution. Flexibility is mistaken for instability by those too brittle to bend. A Sigma adapts not to survive, but to sharpen. 9. Society labels. Purpose as obsession. Because people who lack direction hate being reminded. They're drifting. Purpose is oxygen to a Sigma male. He directs his energy, protects his time, and applies intensity to what matters. In a distracted world, this looks extreme. His focus triggers insecurity in those wasting their time. So society labels him obsessed to avoid confronting its own lack of ambition. The Sigma's internal drive challenges the comfort of mediocrity. When you refuse to waste your life, those who are wasting theirs will call you obsessed. His purpose isn't compulsion, it's clarity. 10. Society confuses self-possession with superiority because it misreads confidence without performance. Most people display confidence the way they display new clothes loudly, publicly, and for approval. Sigma males don't. Their confidence is internal, quiet, self-sustaining. They do not perform strength to be perceived as strong. They simply are. And because society is used to confidence as a performance, it misinterprets quiet self-possession as arrogance. The Sigma male's calm presence feels like superiority to those who measure worth by noise and attention. His grounded identity exposes how fragile most people's self-esteem truly is. The world expects confidence to come with theatrics, ego, dominance, or loud validation seeking. When a man demonstrates none of that yet still moves with certainty, people assume he is looking down on them, when in reality he isn't concerned with them at all. Confidence that doesn't need an audience is always mistaken for ego by those performing theirs. The Sigma male isn't superior, he is simply centered, and that unsettles those who aren't. On a final note, Sigma males are not misunderstood because they are complicated. They are misunderstood because they expose the complications in everyone else. They highlight society's insecurities by refusing to share them. They reveal society's dependencies by not participating in them. They disrupt predictable patterns just by being self-directed. A Sigma male is not a problem. He is a mirror, and people hate what he reflects. When you don't fit the system diagnoses you as broken. But nothing is wrong with the Sigma male. What's wrong is a society that confuses compliance with goodness, noise with worth, chaos with depth, and dependency with connection. The Sigma doesn't challenge the system by attacking it, he challenges it by existing outside its rules. And nothing threatens a rigid world more than a man who proves there is another way to live.